Welcome to Chasing the Narrative, the show where I find a person who I think has an interesting story to tell in the world of 40K, and I bring them on here and we talk about it. So today I have another Adam, the second consecutive Adam. I'm considering doing like 4 Adams in a row, but this is the second Adam. And this is Australian Adam, and I'm calling him that because he was called Down Under Adam for a long time. Not appropriate anymore. Sort of, kind of appropriate. You could call him Adam, but there's a lot of them, so that's just not helpful. So we're going to call him Australian Adam. So Adam Camilleri, for those that don't know, is a longtime persona, I'm going to say, of the 40K world. I'm going to say persona.
Yeah.
You're not even a real person at that point, Adam.
No.
And he's out of Australia originally, now in North America. He's been making podcasts forever. He's commentated some of the biggest things out there, like Charity Hammer. He's commentated a lot of really great stuff. Adam's kind of on a journey to be a full-time professional 40K person that isn't doing that through playing the game.
I'm not good enough to do that.
and that's great. That's self-awareness, which is the thing we talk about on the show. So I thought it'd be great to have Adam on and talk about that. So before we go there, let's start easy. Where in Australia did you grow up, Adam?
I grew up in I guess you'd call it almost like a hobby farming suburb outside Melbourne. Okay. Melbourne, Victoria, Australia.
Did you say hobby farming?
Yeah, it's just a bunch of 10-acre blocks.
Okay.
And so
people who are farming as a hobby.
Yeah, it's not.
I thought you meant they had plants and they were Growing clippers and Citadel paints.
No. That sounds great. Yeah. So I grew up on a little farm. Okay. But the properties weren't big enough to be commercial.
But not like a serious farm. We bought a farm because we wanted to say we own a farm, but it doesn't produce nearly enough.
It doesn't produce enough to it produced enough that we barely bought meat or vegetables a lot.
Okay.
But it wasn't enough to commercially sell to make a living, So I grew up we had chickens, we had goats, we had sheep, we had a big orchard, a couple of dogs. None
of those animals sound very Australian, Adam.
No, we can't keep any of the Australian ones because they're,
Because kangaroos are jerks, basically.
Well,
right?
Do you know how high you have to build a fence to keep a kangaroo in?
No, how high is it?
9 foot is the regulation height to keep a kangaroo in. Just to be sure.
What about drop bears? Could you?
Nothing keeps a drop bear in.
Okay, fair enough.
But yeah, so I grew up on a little farm with 3 brothers, which was quite an adventure.
Where are you in that ranking, Adam?
I'm second youngest. I'm second
youngest. Okay.
I'm this one, third one down.
Almost the baby.
Almost the baby. Yeah, definitely, definitely the middle child.
Okay.
Of 2.
Great. So, what did your parents do? Were they farmers, or that was just the thing they did while doing their other jobs?
So it was all my dad, really. So my dad's from Malta. He's Maltese, and of course they moved away from Malta so they could have places that have acreage, and being the European man that he wanted to grow his tomatoes and he wanted to have his plums and his chickens and his as self-sufficient as possible, hence the goats as well, very Maltese. And yeah, so my mum was a stay-at-home mum with 4 kids. She had pretty much we're all 2 years apart, so she had a kid underfoot for like a decade.
Oof.
Straight.
And she also had too many children.
Way too many children.
Yeah, I have 3, and I will tell all of you out there that are considering having a 3rd child,
2.
You don't want to move from from man defense to zone defense. It's rough.
Yeah. 2 vasectomy. Bang.
Yes.
Keep
each kid's being problematic. You take one, I'll take the other.
It's true.
When I first met the kids, Stephanie and I went to an arcade, like a big multi-story arcade, and I gave all the kids a card that lets them play the video games, and then the kids all ran in 3 different directions.
Amazing.
And there's 2 of us. And I said, Stephanie, what do we do? And she said, we follow the youngest 2 and hope the oldest one knows what he's doing.
Looks after himself. Yeah. Or herself. Yeah, pretty much. Well, I grew up in a... how deep we going?
Go for it.
So my dad, when I was growing up, wasn't a very nice dude.
Okay. Mine either.
Yeah, I was... the 10 acres we were on was his kingdom, and he controlled everything that happened on those 10 acres. Where we lived a very regimented life. He'd get us up at the crack of dawn on the weekend just to give us a bucket and tell us to go pick up rocks in the paddocks and stuff. Just to control, just to be always watching and knowing what we're doing.
Wow.
He was there was quite a bit of abuse.
He was intense, is what it sounds
It's
like.
extremely intense. It was just quite a bit of yeah.
Okay.
Wasn't an. There was some extremely awesome parts of my childhood, having four brothers going on adventures. Like so, he'd kick us out of the house some days and just be like, "Go, don't come back until sundown." And then other days it would just be like, "Thumb on the back of the head, you don't breathe unless I tell you you're allowed to."
Was
My
there
mum,
mental health stuff going on there that you know about now?
absolutely. My dad is on probably all sorts of spectrums.
Okay.
Definitely some, yeah. We don't know if it's Asperger's, autistic, or a
Or
combination
he's
of
just an
both,
a-hole.
or he's just an asshole. Well, so tell you a bit about my dad. He's the oldest of three
Okay.
brothers, three sons. He
Yeah.
came here from Malta when Malta got bombed out in World
And when
War
you say
Two.
here, you don't mean Mexico where you are right
No,
now.
no. So he came over from Malta with my grandfather, my nana, and then my grandfather died. His father died, and he was the
Mhm.
oldest in a very traditional European family. He had to go to work very young and provide. His mother didn't speak a lick of English, and he had to pretty much man of the house from like far too young. Didn't have much of
Yeah.
a childhood. Didn't have much of a childhood, and so that bled over. He didn't really know how to be a dad. He didn't know how to raise or nurture. He just knew how to control and make sure things didn't fall apart.
Right.
And that's pretty much what happened. We had a very strict, very do everything that I say to the letter or you'll cop it, kind of upbringing. And that led us, me and all my brothers, into going in like you said, four very different directions. My oldest brother rebelled and ran away from home the second he could. I think it was 15 or 16. He was just
Okay.
gone and never came back. Um,
What does he do now?
he's a teacher.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah, he's a teacher. Becoming a tattoo artist now.
Fantastic.
He's been a teacher for like almost 20 years. He's like, nah, I'm done. I'm going to do something that I
Yeah.
love now. Possibly inspired by me doing something similar. I'd like to
Yeah,
say
right.
that ha, 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 I got in first doing the passion project.
All right. Second oldest brother.
Second oldest brother became a recluse, turned it all inwards, became quite nasty, quite mean, wanted to just stay in his room, be separated from everybody. I became the absolute black sheep, but I was a weird dichotomy. Like I was yes sir, no sir, how high to my dad. And as soon as he wasn't around, I was a wild child,
Mm-hmm.
uncontrollable, total trauma. Yeah, crazy. My youngest brother is a mix of all of us.
Okay.
It's just like he's just multifaceted. He's like the best of us. Yeah, we all
Now,
adore him.
do you think, is that because he had the least BS from your father?
He was
Because
somewhat.
for me,
Mm,
I'll just say this really quick. My father has some pretty significant mental health issues.
mm.
And my parents got divorced when I was 14, but my brother was 19. And the difference
Oh,
of how many years we each lived
mm.
in that household has made a big difference on our future mental health. So I'm
Ooh, yeah.
curious, if your younger brother, did he get more dad? Did he get less dad? Same amount of
Um,
dad?
he got it probably got a bit more sheltered than
Okay.
I mean. Of the four of us, me and my oldest brother are very similar personality wise, and my
Okay.
youngest brother and my next oldest brother are very similar. So one and three are the
Weird.
same, and two and four are the same, like or similar. And so I was very loud, very boisterous, very
Weird.
as you can
That
tell.
doesn't sound on brand for you, Adam.
I know, who would have thought? And also, like ADHD riddled, which will be poignant soon in the story.
Okay.
And so I copped a lot because
For those that are long or have been listening to all the episodes, Adam Camilleri and I, or excuse me, Adam Abramowitz and I talked. We talked ADHD and mental health for like 15 minutes on the
Mm.
previous episode. Sounds like we're going to get there again. I also am currently dealing with ADHD and trying to figure out what
Oh,
meds to be
really?
on. So I'm with you.
Fantastic.
All
Good
right.
stuff.
The one thing I want to know before we zip out of your childhood is, did you play Warhammer as a child?
I did from the age of I think it was 8 to 11. I
Okay.
played bits and pieces, and by bits and pieces I mean like I begged my mum to buy me a single Space Marine Sergeant. It was the old one that was like had a metal bolter arm and like had
Yeah.
the T piece
I
banner.
have him. Yeah.
Beautiful. I stuck him together with Araldite and ruined it immediately, because I didn't know any better.
Right.
And we weren't that well off when I was younger, and so that was like all the Warhammer I had. I played that along with like my Pokemon models and
Sure.
my dinosaurs, and
Sure.
so I had bits and pieces. I was involved in the hobby, but I couldn't really participate, and I didn't have the attention span to paint, even though I tried a couple of times.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So it sounds to me like Adam's aging. He's aging. He's aging. And it sounds like
Hmm.
we're going to go off the rails. Is there anything interesting we should talk about before it goes off the rails?
I was heavily medicated as a kid from a very young age.
Okay,
I was
because of
put on
ADHD.
ADHD and the fact that I was so uncontrollable. One
You
thing that's
can't
really
control Adam.
Yeah, who would have thought?
He's uncontrollable.
So one thing that was very poignant was I had horrific ear issues from birth.
Okay.
I had 6 different surgeries to correct my hearing.
Okay.
And one of the things that was really poignant about that was that I was treated as a very bad kid before I was a bad kid.
Okay.
There's something that may have been cart before the horse. I'm just trying to I'm just
No,
coming
that
to
makes
learn this
sense.
stuff as
Yeah.
an adult.
Yeah,
I
we're
would get
grown-ups now. We have had a lot of time to think about this shit.
yeah, I would get screamed at, I would get smacked, I would get beaten by my dad, by teachers as well. This is this long ago.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have heard them telling me to stop doing what I was doing because I couldn't hear them.
Okay.
And so my hearing would get corrected by surgery.
Real dad of the year here.
Yeah, I'd be corrected by surgery, and then it would decline again. And so
Okay.
I'd be good, and then I'd get progressively bad because I couldn't hear instruction or couldn't comprehend what was being told to me, and then I'd start getting treated bad. And that's where I think the decline happened in my behavior. Like I never think I got to start right. I think I started because I always thought I was a good kid that went bad, but it turns out I feel like I was just always always on the roller coaster.
Yeah.
So I got heavily medicated for ADHD from a young age, and I was put on a lot of different diets. Like you're not allowed to have food coloring, not have sugar, all the crazy stuff from like the early '90s that we didn't know what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
And so I was from a very young age.
This particular M&M causes cancer. Oh,
exactly.
Really?
Yeah. From a very young age, I was treated like I was different and that I wasn't a part of. And in my teen years, that became an identity for me. And I became like, oh, you don't want to treat me like I belong? Well, I don't belong.
Then I don't belong.
Exactly. Yeah. It started a snowball effect. And being handed pills consistently and said, here, you'll be a better person if you take these.
Yeah.
People will like you more if you take these. But you will be the seeking of approval and all the other things that led me into some pretty horrific circumstances, some substance abuse, crime, gang stuff. Like I'm not talking hardcore stuff like American gangs
are even like in Australia. Are there didgeridoos involved? I don't know.
Some there are indigenous gangs
yes.
in Australia.
I would like gangs to solve their issues through didgeridoo competitions.
Music fight, music battles. Zoolander, yes. But with didgeridoos.
Exactly right. Mostly, I just like saying didgeridoo. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I was just looking for a place in the episode to get to say didgeridoo multiple times.
Well, you've ticked the drop bear, you ticked the didgeridoo. There's a couple others we could.
There's others. We're going to make fun of Australian music later.
How dare you?
Well, not really. By the way, for those that are going to stick around, in part 2, Adam's going to tell us the weirdest things that have struck him about moving to America from Australia. If you think that that's not a weird thing, or if you just like laughing at America, we're going to do that in part 2, which you can see along with all of the other part 2s if you join our members area on YouTube, completely separate from our Patreon group. That's also an option to you. But the members area on YouTube will allow you to hear part 2 of all these shows. It also allows you to see all of our battle reports, and many of them are in there. Many of them are free. You can check them out. And also, there's a thing after every Fight Club each week called the Fight Club After Party that is also in YouTube. So there we go. I've now done the thing I had to do. Let's get back to talking about Adam. So okay, so substance. Now, one of the things that's interesting about this is people with ADHD self-medicate.
Exactly.
That is a thing that I did not know about when I was in my 20s and frustrated with ADHD but didn't know what it was. I actually got diagnosed as a grown-up like a year ago.
Oh, wow.
And that's really rare. But everybody I went to, and I did a lot of mental health stuff as a kid, but everybody I went to said, oh yeah, ADHD. Yes.
Yeah.
Many ADHDs is what basically everybody said. And over the last 6 years, I've transitioned from smoking pot every month or so to a lot of pot smoking. And I didn't know why that was.
Yep.
And I don't think it's an addiction that's causing me problems, but it is something I should cut back on. Like it's one of those things. Like I acknowledge that it's not good, but it's also not as bad as other things I'm trying to overcome. Anyways, this isn't about me. I just wanted to relate. For those that don't know, mental health problems is a big part of why people self-medicate themselves.
Absolutely. And it's no beating around the bush. It is prevalent and it is dense within our community. extremely. So the more attention we can give it, the better.
Right. So what happened? What was this? What are some of the more ridiculous things Adam did when he was going off the rails?
All right. This is the one I always, because I'm quite involved.
Okay, we have a go-to story. I'm ready for it.
I have the go-to initial story. So
okay.
I was a fat kid. I was a chunker, like chubby.
Okay.
I remember when I went to one of my last year corrections. I remember my mum being ashamed. Sorry, the first thing I self-medicated with was food, by the way.
Okay.
My mum being ashamed.
That's only because it's delicious.
It absolutely, and I could sneak it at night, and which I would do. My mum being ashamed that it took 3 orderlies. I was in primary school. It took 3 male orderlies to pick me up and put me on the gurney, to take me into the operating room, and my mum just being like crying because I was so fat. And I remember that shame just way on waves. So that did me some good. Yeah. But naturally, my mum
really healthy moment for a childhood Adam there.
Yeah, my mum lived a pretty rough life. She essentially wasn't. She was controlled horrifically by my dad. Wasn't essentially allowed to leave the house. Like, yeah. So, yeah. So pretty much, she saw a lot of me and her and me. But moving on. So the first time I ever like properly got drunk was at school on Valentine's Day in 2001.
Okay. How old were you?
I was 13.
Oh, nice. And you got drunk at school at 13.
I got pissed at school. I smoked a cigarette at school, first cigarette, and I kissed a girl at school. Same day, same lunch break in year 7. And that was it, man. That was the whole problem there was, Colin, I peaked too early. It was just like, there's no way to go from there. Fat boy Adam, I've kissed a girl, smoked a cigarette, I'm drinking liquor, I'm a man now, here we are, I've arrived. And it was just like never that good again.
Man, I bet you were awful to deal with from that point on.
That was probably insufferable.
Just terrible.
Yeah.
Do you have friends from that time still?
I have one friend from 15, 16 years old.
Okay, they kind of stuck through it all with you.
Yeah,
that's nice. I like that.
But that's because from there I started associating with the bad kids. I was in the back of the
also,
oval.
They're the people that have the drugs,
and they're the people who accept you. They didn't reject me. They never did. I was a big kid. I was like the second largest kid in year 7. So I turned into a bit of a bully. I would switch between being the bully and being the anti-bully. It was very strange dichotomy. Like I would switch from being compliant with my father to being rebellious when he wasn't around. It was almost very similar in that mirror effect.
Right.
That yin and yang. And yeah, I proceeded to associate with the bad kids, started stealing stuff, robbing people, stealing cars, getting into fights, like bad shit. Just dumb, bad shit.
And how long did this Dark Adam timeline go on for?
From 13 to 23.
Wow, 10 years.
Yeah, surprisingly. Although from 21 onwards, something really horrible happened, and I hurt a very close friend of mine whilst in a blackout. I hospitalized him in a very horrible set of events. And that was my excuse to lock myself up with my addictions. I decided I was no longer safe to be around. Rather than stopping what I was doing and correcting the behaviors, I decided I was no longer safe to be around others, and I proceeded to begin to use and drink myself to death over the next 2 years.
Wow.
That was my lock me up. I'm too far gone. Give up on me. Whoa. Self-pity personified.
So what happened then?
So naturally my family had enough of me. I did some horrible shit to some of my family members as well. I don't know if you have the term like running through somebody's house, but I ran through my brother's house, my oldest brother's house. I trashed it, threatened his wife, and did some pretty awful stuff there. Once again, in a drug-addled psychosis.
Wow.
Yeah, so if my family was just hanging in there. At the age of 23, I got given the choice to fuck off or go to rehab.
Okay.
As in, am I allowed to swear? I should have asked.
It's all right.
Yeah, I got given the choice to literally not have a family anymore, and probably I wasn't.
So they tried to make you go to rehab, and you said?
I told them to stick it.
No. That's exactly right.
Yeah. Well, initially I told them to stick it, and it was only a matter of time before I was going to go to prison as well. I had some looming stuff there. And so I was given some very good advice that this would solve a lot of your problems. by doing this. I essentially, it was really weird. So I was given a pamphlet of this rehab that my parents wanted me to go to, and I remember just throwing it, like just being like, yeah, whatever, piss off, and I just threw it, landed on my coffee table. I didn't.
23-year-old Adam is so mad at the world too.
I
I can hear
was,
it. I can hear it in what you're
yeah,
talking about. You're like, it's not just substance abuse. You're like pissed.
I was angry. Yeah,
Yeah, you're very angry. I can hear it
I was
in the story.
angry that I felt like I'd never been treated right. I'd never been
Right,
treated as an equal, and I'd never been treated like I belonged. And
right.
so I just told everybody, you don't, you anybody, anything, you're all shit. You're all horrible. You've all hurt me, and very embittered. I decided there was nothing to
But
live
you,
for as well. I like that. That
okay.
was the saddest thing. Like, and we'll get to like the rock bottom effect of things and how the ship has turned around since, because it has, surprisingly.
Yeah, you got a great life. You're a very happy guy.
I am. I'm not dead either. It's
Yeah,
great. It's awesome.
it's awesome. I'm really happy that I'm not dead.
Yeah, me too. Because it's the arrogance that I had back then. And
Yeah.
it's another thing as well. I have the in addiction terms and in recovery terms, we call it the weird dichotomy of having a massive ego and no self-esteem.
Yes.
And that was exactly me. I thought I was like lying in the gutter, literally dying from what I was doing to myself and my body, telling everyone else they were shit, like just judging, really silly, or only hurting myself. We say a lot of lines like it's like drinking the poison and expecting someone else to die.
Right.
Like, yeah,
Wow.
but yeah, it's stupid.
No, it's not stupid. It's just a thing you went through.
It's exactly.
I mean, here's the thing, and people are going to roll their eyes at this because this is so totally, and I'm going to swear now, this is totally Colin bullshit, right? But
I'm down.
here's how I feel about my life. I really like who I am right now at this very
Nice.
moment, and I really like my life right now at this very moment. And everything that's happened, shitty or good, my entire life made me the person I am right now.
Mhm.
My dad has massive mental health problems. He was in the closet for 30 years, blah, 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 like all this stuff, right? Like all of these things that made me have a shitty childhood in a lot of ways. That's why I'm who I am now. That's why I'm
Yep.
good at the things
Yep.
I'm good at. The reason I'm good at dealing with people is because I dealt with a crazy father my entire childhood.
Mm.
Like it just is who you are. So I don't hear
Yeah.
your stories and think, man, Adam was stupid or Adam was a mess. I'm hearing your stories and I'm just interested for the origin story.
It's part of the
Because
journey.
I like who
Yeah.
Adam is right now.
Thank
And
you.
so I'm curious about the origin story. That's
I'm
what we're doing here.
I'm quietly a fan of Adam now as well.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
All
And
right, so
you're also much thinner than you were the last time I saw you in person.
yeah, I've been eating well, looking after myself, jogging a
Yeah.
lot, walking a lot. Life's been exceptionally good to me.
Okay, so now that we've said that, we're going to talk rock bottom now?
All right, so I go to rehab. I eventually
Okay.
decide I need to go to rehab. I don't do it because I actually want to stop using or stop any of my self-destructive stuff. I just do it to shut everybody up, to
Yeah.
stop the
Okay.
nagging, the stressing, all these things, and also because the pamphlets I threw down on my table, like I had this one little epiphany because I didn't touch them for the next like probably about 4 or 5 months, and then I remember I'd like bumped them and there was this trail of dust around them, and I realized not one thing had changed since I threw them there
Oh, wow.
4 months ago. I had this little like spark in the back of my head, and I was like, "Huh, nothing's changed. This is Adam. This is just what life is going to be until you die if you don't do something."
Jesus. Okay.
And
Yeah.
so I went to rehab, and it was the hardest thing I'd ever done. Like way harder than all the pain, all the misery, the isolation. Maybe not the loneliness. I was horrifically lonely, and that hurt and damaged me a lot. And that's kind of the biggest fear I have now in life is being lonely, being not worth knowing.
Right.
Maybe that's why I make so much content. Hey, you can't escape.
Yeah.
I'm everywhere. Yeah, bang bang.
Right. Everybody has to like me. That's completely
right.
healthy and normal.
I am all around you. So there's definitely,
just as a complete tangent, how long did you make content before you didn't care if people left you bad comments?
I still kind of care.
Do you? Because I got a ridiculous one on a battle report last week that I just laughed at.
I don't read many anymore just because I don't have time. But
no, nor should you.
If I see constructive feedback, I always am willing. Always try to be willing to take it on. If you don't attack me, my character or something I said, or call me a liar or anything like that, just say, "Hey Adam, here's something I think you could do better at." I will 100% take it on every single time. So I expect a deluge on my next couple of videos.
Talk slower.
Yes, I
I've
100%
heard
need to take
multiple
that on.
people tell you to talk slower when you do commentary, and
Mm.
I hear you say, "That's not going to happen."
Well, I have actually tried, but the thing is, it'll be like the first like 6 or 7 minutes while I'm conscious, and then I just like the passion rises in my gut,
Oh,
and I'm
I
like,
know.
"Brrrr," off we go.
But the other
Uh,
side of that, and I do want to get back to your story, but the other side of that is, um, as long as you have the right co-host, I actually think that's fine.
I
Because
do,
you're
yeah.
like a hype avatar.
Mm. And that's the thing, yeah.
That's your energy. And so
If
like if
it's
you had two people that are avatars, like that would be bad. But you can have
exactly.
one person that's a hype avatar.
Yep. Because if it's just me saying those things, like say 2 minutes out of, or 2.5 minutes out of every five, it doesn't get overwhelming.
Right.
Um, and it's also, there's the roles of commentary. There's the color commentary,
Yeah.
and there's the play by play, or you can have the kind of matron D, the like the master of ceremonies, which is like the Paul Murphy esque, who
Yeah.
just like weaves the guy in the middle of the circus. He's
Hmm.
calm, all around him is chaos. That is me and Paul's dynamic. Um,
Hmm.
and so it works quite well. On back to the story. So I went to
Yeah.
rehab.
Yes.
I was in rehab for 90 days, so 3 months straight.
Okay.
Got out of rehab, went to a halfway house. And I was in there for 4 months. So there's 7 months, and then I went out of that halfway house into I suppose you call it a clean living supported accommodation that still had like a day program. And I was in there for 11 months. So I did
Okay.
18 months essentially of nonstop treatment.
Okay. And then
Um,
you walked out and did drugs.
no, I haven't used again. I haven't had a
Oh,
drink.
that's fantastic. I was worried that
Yeah.
we weren't actually at the happy part of the story.
No, but it was miserable. So the first 3 months in rehab, where I had to face
I,
myself,
I
had to
just have
face.
to say, my aunt got mouth cancer from smoking, and they
Yeah.
said at the hospital when they were checking her out, they said, "Hey, if you smoke again, there's like a 95% chance you're going to get mouth cancer again." And she's like,
Wow.
"Okay, I'll stop smoking." And I watched her light up in the mother effing parking lot of the hospital.
Wow.
Now that's addiction. Anyway, sorry. Go
It
ahead.
is.
You out of rehab.
So I'll tell you some bit about rehab.
Sure.
Rehab was absolutely harrowing for me. I'd spent the last 2 years as a recluse, just me, my misery, and just layering lies. Like anytime someone talked to me or connected with me, all I gave them was lies. Just lied. "Oh, I'm doing fine. I've got this going on. I'm working this job. I'm doing this. Oh yeah, I still hang around with so and so. Didn't see anybody. Didn't talk to anybody." So all I had going into like being stuck with people who know addiction, my peers like did not accept one iota of my bullshit.
No.
They fronted me on everything. They were absolute. They destroyed me. They terrorized me. I had 3 guys in rehab. Yeah, I call them my fairy godfathers. They were all in their 40s. They all had like multiple kids and broken lives, and I was 20 freaking 3.
Right.
Yeah, and I was like shattered. Like I was a shell of a human being, no personality, no nothing. I would just mirror whatever came at me because I didn't have anything inside me that was mine anymore.
Right.
I was just a compilation of everyone else's bullshit,
Hmm.
and just pain. I had one guy who was an ex bikie. He got excommunicated from a bikie gang. I had one guy who was dishonorably discharged as a sergeant in the armed forces, and I have another one who was an ex professional boxer, and they terrorized me every day, being like, "Yeah, is this how you want to be, Adam? You want to be full of lies? You want to end up back here when you're 40 like me?" And that kind of shit, just all day, every day. And they saved my life. They
Are you
literally,
still in touch with them?
kinda. We've all kind of gone their separate ways. It turns out, like, I just don't have, apart from our shared bonding then, we don't, just not that much in common as
Yeah.
people
Right.
now.
Like
But yeah, like,
important people to you, but they're
yeah,
not doing the
I mean,
same things as you.
exactly. I'd sit down and have a coffee with them at the drop of a hat, and just be happy to talk. It's like a once a year thing. How you doing? You're not dead. I'm not dead. This is great. The
Right.
dream continues. Um,
So you made a professional decision based on this on this, right? You ended up working in mental health for a long time.
I did. I worked in that rehab for about a year once I'd left, and then I went back to school. So for those, I didn't touch on this, but I did really, really badly in school. I got
Shocking.
expelled. I got expelled in year 11. I don't know what you call
Okay.
that in American
Yeah,
freedom
it's year
years.
11. No, it's year
Yeah,
11's fine.
yeah. I got expelled in year 11 3 times in one year.
Okay. I don't know how that works, but fine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I went to one school. The school I was at in year 10. I went to that school in year 11. bombed out was just down the street around the corner smoking, doing drugs. They expelled me. Went to a school for 6 weeks. When I got left from there, back to the previous school I was at, got into a couple of really big fights, like brawls, like within the first like 2 weeks. Bang, see you later, expelled. And then the year afterwards, which was still the same. Because I went to a mid-year or whatever. I went to another school which was a TAFE, like, so it was for adults, just to do the last couple of years of high school. And I just got drunk all day at the pub down the road, played pool, and dealt drugs, and got expelled for not attending school. And so the 3 schools, essentially one 12-month period. So
career-wise, though, you ended up doing something interesting, right?
Yeah, so I ended up going back to school, did 4 years of school to get a couple of diplomas. And then through dint of my personal experience, I got a job essentially as a subcontractor for the government, doing essentially psychoanalysis, drug and alcohol assessments for offenders, people in Australia who have drug and alcohol related offences, whether that be prior to sentencing, to determine, how prevalent and how severe their substance use was and how involved it was with their offences, or prior to parole or being released on corrections orders, to deem what services are required in order to assist in recovery and avoiding recidivism, like reoffending. They would come and see someone like me. I'd sit down for about 2 hours, ask them all about their lives. What was your childhood like? When did you get introduced to substances? What did you use? How much did you use? How long did you use? How did you use it? Did you inject it? Put it up your butt? Put it up your nose? Put it in your eyeball?
What things do you put up your butt?
Usually, like a lot of ecstasy can go up your butt.
Really?
Some good suppository stuff out there.
All right. The hardest drug I've ever done is marijuana, so I don't have a lot of.
It's fair.
I don't have a lot of experience here, especially with butt-related drugs. No experience with butt-related drugs.
But
however, my wiener dog that has seizures does have anti-seizure medicine that you do inject into his butt.
Yeah, a lot of party drugs, surprisingly. Things you would think you could use at raves can usually go up the. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I would end up sitting with somebody for about 2 hours and just getting their life story. And by dint of my personal experience, it was something that came very naturally to me. Yeah. I've been, I'm sure you guys know a bit about recovery. There's a lot of different programs out there for self-help, things like that. I've always been very active in those. It's something I've kind of taken with me all over the world now. Like, I've been active in recovery in Europe when I've been in Europe, in Japan when I've been in Japan, in America now when I've been in America, and it's just a really big part of my story, because I feel like I need to give what I've been given. I've been given but by dint of the love of others, I've been given a chance to literally restart my life, build a person from scratch, the person I am today, build from scratch. And so, despite whatever flaws I may have, they're the flaws that I've chosen, because this is the person I am now is exactly who I've chosen to be, which is extremely empowering. Extremely.
It's interesting, because I think that, especially when I was young, growing up in kind of an upper middle class part of Washington State, I felt like, why would anyone do drugs? Stupid people. Only stupid people do drugs. Only bad people do drugs. And I think especially for those of us that are childs of the 80s here in the United States, the war on drugs, I think, demonized drug users pretty bad. And so I was actually probably in my 20s, late 20s, before I met somebody who had come out of substance abuse and realized that they were just a person with demons like everybody else. And I think that you probably were really good at that, because you came in with that immediate understanding. This is not a person who's bad. This is a person who has made a mistake, and they need help now in order to get out of it.
I kind of think of it like, I never had a chance to do it right. Like, I never really had people talk about, when did you go off the rails, Adam? I'm like, I'm not sure I was ever on the rails. But that was the kind of epiphany I had when I realized how poorly I'd been treated as like a 2, 3, 4-year-old kid. Like, in kindergarten, I remember being smacked around because I couldn't hear them telling me to stop doing what I was doing, and them thinking I was a shit kid and just like refusing to acknowledge what they were saying.
Maybe mistake was the wrong word. Maybe I should have said,
no.
This is somebody who bad things have happened to. Or something.
I made plenty of mistakes, mate. Like, plenty of times so for every opportunity I had from like my family wanting to help me, from friends wanting to help me, from employers wanting to help me, and I rejected them again and again and again. So I've made plenty of mistakes, plenty. funnily enough, people talk about rock bottom as in, like, I'm of the opinion rock bottom is when you figure out you need to stop digging. Like, rock bottom will literally continue until you die. My rock bottom happened I think it was about 60 days. I was about halfway through rehab when I realized I was a 23-year-old kid who was happy to die at 23, not thinking there was anything left to live for. And I'm like, that's the saddest shit I've ever seen. And that's when I realized that was what rock bottom was. So I'd already been clean for 60 days, and I realized I was still at rock bottom because I had the realization that was horrifically sad. It was really sad and a waste of a life.
Yeah. So let's do the thing that American and Disney movies always do.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the happy ending.
Yeah, let's do it.
Because there is a happy ending. So how many years did you work for the government in that role that you just described?
So I worked for them for 7 years. So I went straight out of uni, and then I worked in mental health. I was a disability mental health support worker for about 18 months, and then in the last 6 months of that job, I was working 2 jobs because I was working that job as well, and then that led into full time with them for pretty much the last 7 years. I still have that job right now, mate. Like, Australia is awesome. I am on leave without pay from that job for up to 12 months. So if this busts, I just go straight back to it.
So then after all of this mental health work, you said, what I really should do is move to North America and make money on 40K.
Yeah. Well, the make money bit, I just want to not starve, pretty much, and be happy with what I'm doing. So I made the decision. So whilst in the last 7 years, I think 2-3 years ago, I started live streaming for Down Under Network. That was 4 years ago, I started doing a show called Gaming Against the Grain. This was directly inspired by Adam Abramowitz, who you had on last week.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you the full story though. I moved to a country town 2 hours away from home with my partner at the time, my girlfriend at the time, because she lived out of town 4 hours away, and so we went in the middle and moved there. That's where I found both those jobs. The one in
weird how much better sober Adam is with women, right?
I know. Who would have thought? Like, and so we were together for 5 years, and we're living in that town. And I was working these 2 jobs and stuff. And then unfortunately, that relationship ended in pretty anticlimactic events. She just kind of said after 5 years it wasn't working and left, and I still kind of don't have much closure on it, which it messed me up pretty well. And one of the things I decided I needed to do was to start making content, start doing something productive into the thing that I was already giving like so much of my time. Once that relationship had ended, I'd like immersed myself in the hobby and just like used it as my comfort blanket. And so I started doing a show called Game Against the Grain, and the whole premise there was to become a better person by playing the worst army in the game at the time, which was early 8th edition Space Marine Codex Black Templars.
Okay, all right.
Horrific. Worst army. I'd never gone worse than 4-1 or 3-2 at an event. And the first event I took them to, I went 1-4. And it's still the worst showing at any tournament I've ever been to. And so I did that over the next kind of 6 to 9 months, putting out irregular stuff. Oh, no, I started doing that before she left. Sorry. And the week she left, the same week I went into my job, into one of the prisons for my work, and I got assaulted quite badly by a couple of inmates, and I had my jaw broken and was in a really bad way. And that kind of killed that podcast for me. And then I picked myself up a couple of months later and started doing Down Under Network with my good man Josh Diffie, and we started doing the live content. We started doing live commentary of tournaments. And yeah, that kind of has rolled into all sorts of things. I've now streamed 3 LVOs, including an open for the t-shirt. One being on the undercard, and then doing the open, then the overcard, which we just did this recent one.
You've done a couple charity hammers.
2 charity hammers. I was present for one and commentated the last one because I was here in 2020. It didn't happen in 2021. Sorry, no, it didn't.
You commentated on the local one during COVID where I wasn't able to have everybody in. Yeah. You've been involved in all but the first one, I think.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I'm going to be, fingers crossed, I will be at the next one as well.
Yeah, right.
I'm so excited. Yeah.
But
yeah, I do 3 podcasts a week. I do Art of War Down Under. I do Forge of the Narrative, and I do the Thursday show. Yep. I'm possibly starting new shows. Any drop of a hat. Constantly people seem to be wanting to know what I think and being me to be involved with their stuff. I'm I'm living 50-50 off like 40K money, and my savings at the moment, which thanks to COVID not letting me do anything for 2 years, is pretty healthy still. So
Okay.
I can go quite a while on this journey, but I'm just here giving it a go. I don't really mind if I fail. If I fail now, I can just try again later. Maybe it's a bust, and I end up just doing like I'm in the States or in Europe for like 3 months of every year. That could be a beautiful world as well. I don't really care what this looks like. I'm just realizing my 30s have been amazing to me, and I'm just having a go at what I love. I just don't. Yeah,
That's the best.
it's so good.
I think we're going to wrap it up here in just a second. But before we do, people are going to listen to this that are struggling with mental health. They're struggling with substance abuse. Do you have anything you want to say that as kind of a final message to them?
The penny dropped for me when I learned it was okay to need help. My father was so much toxic masculinity. You can imagine three brothers and a very dominant father, controlling father. If I needed help, it was because I was a failure. If I needed to ask for something, it was because I wasn't good enough to get it for myself.
Right.
It is so okay to need help. And learning to accept help, be vulnerable,
And ask for help.
and ask for it
Yep.
is not an emasculating thing. It is an empowering thing. Do it. You will not regret it. And just detach from the outcome. Ask for the help, detach from the outcome. Do not have any terms and conditions for the assistance that you receive apart from it being safe and not causing you harm. But go for it. Do not be afraid to change. Like there's nothing worse than the same old shit. Like nothing worse than just the misery you made for yourself.
Yeah. Wow. That's really great. I'm gonna have that be the last thing Adam shares with you guys for this part, because that was wonderful. And I really have appreciated this, Adam. I think this has been just great.
Awesome.
It's wonderful to get to hear what you went through and how you see it and how your outlook has changed, and the journey that you're on right now, where you're just like, I don't know, I'm on this adventure and it's fun and it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
I think it's such a freeing place to be. I think the Best in Tabletop is similar for me. There's no downside to me doing Best in Tabletop. I mean, maybe it'll cost some money, right?
Beautiful. Exactly.
You know what? Like, and this is something that I say all the time with my wife.
Yeah.
We can make more money. If I make a bad decision and I waste the money, we can make better financial decisions after that and fix it.
I don't fear failure anymore.
No.
It's just part of the journey.
Yep.
And it's totally fine to fail.
Yep. Not that you're going to expect to fail.
No, I don't care if I do. Like, as long as I learned and enjoyed the journey, it doesn't matter.
That's great. Okay. Thank you very much, Adam. Appreciate you. Thank you guys for listening and watching Chasing the Narrative. We really love doing this show, and I'm glad that we got a chance to have such a real conversation. For those that are YouTube members, you can now continue on to part 2, where Adam is going to talk about how ridiculous America is. And that's going to be really great because America really has so little going for it. No, it's not true at all. So we're gonna have a little bit of joy about how weird America can be. That's what we're gonna do next. Thank you, everybody, for Chasing the Narrative. I'm Colin. This has been Adam. I almost called you Adam Abramowitz again. I can't do Adam back to back ever again.
That's a fine name to call me. Wonderful.
Adam Camilleri. Thank you so much. Talk to you guys soon. Bye now.
See you guys.